from the Parks Classic for Lebanon Athletics.
First of all, I'd like to welcome the Carps Classic back to the Lebanon School District. This donation we're really excited about. 4,000 to go to LMS basketball, half boys, half girls, and the other 4,000 to LHS for the girls and boys. So I'd like to thank them and congratulate them on a successful event.
Any additional comment on the donation? All right, we will close the public hearing. All right, I'd like to call the school board meeting to order. Oh, yes.
Sorry, I just want to say something about that.
Come,
Is that okay?
come. Sorry, I didn't see your hand. I have not closed. I'm opening it back up.
I just wanted to thank the SAU for allowing us in. It's really good to be back. And in particular, I just wanted to get on the record a couple people. Tim Ball helped, Principal Smith from LHS, Mike Stone from LHS, Julie from Facilities was a great, great help. And a super, super duper thank you to Carol and Joyce, the janitors, who were just awesome. And we look forward to coming back next year in many years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we will close the public hearing, and we will reopen the board meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Public comment will occur during the public comment portion of the meeting and is done via raising your hand remotely or in person. During public comment, once acknowledged, please state your name and ward so that it can be included in the minutes. And please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment is governed by policy BEDH. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda?
Just one change to new business 10A, discussion and action of approval of ELA program. It will just be discussion update tonight. Action will come on June 8th.
Right. So do we want to, since it looks like we have, since it looks like we have representation from the Clark family, do we want to move that up so that we don't have to sit in this one? Absolutely. Where is that? Number 10E. 10E, okay. So let's move that up to before the SAU leadership update. So right after this. No, okay. All right. We are. Yeah, we're moving on to public comment. Is there any public comment? There is. You can come to the mic, please. Say your name and word for where you're from. I'm so close to it.
Okay, hello again. My name is Maggie Finn, and I'm a current teacher at LHS and advisor of council. And I'm here to speak again in favor of school board policy GJFAB, admission of district employees, non-resident students. I think I shared last meeting that unfortunately I'm moving out of the district, so while this policy won't impact me, I still feel strongly about the policy and want to urge you to pass it as is this evening. I'm also here to address some of the concerns raised by a community member in the correspondence folder regarding this policy. First of all, the opposition letter submitted states that teacher recruitment and retention is not a crisis situation here in Lebanon. However, across the country and in New Hampshire, this is indeed a problem, and there is plenty of data to back this up. Superintendent Allen referenced last meeting the increasing difficulties for Lebanon School District compared to the past. It seems naive to assume that we are immune from a national teacher shortage ever impacting our district in a more severe manner. Are we waiting for a crisis with rooms of dozens of students without qualified or experienced teachers in front of them to do something? I'd also like to note that vacancies don't necessarily mean that staff aren't struggling in their jobs and considering if this is a long-term career for them. I applaud the proactive nature of this policy, focused on the retention of our already amazing staff and recruitment of more great employees. Secondly, the financial impact seems grossly misrepresented in the opposition letter, where the writer suggests that each child would cost $25,000 and that a seat in the classroom that is below enrollment is not free. I trust Mr. Ball to be able to speak to this more, But as was discussed last meeting, due to current under-enrollment in the district, there are open seats, and these seats do not require hiring extra staff. The budget for next year is already set. Sure, a teacher's child may take 2 drinks from a water fountain a day, thus increasing our water bill, but are we really calling that a cost? This negligible cost is far outweighed by the benefit. I wonder at what point we might consider that Lebanon teachers have worked at 1.5 to 2% pay raises for the last 3 years that correspondingly had average rates of inflation at 8% and 4.7%, where current inflation is at 3.4%. Sure, maybe we don't have as many openings as other districts, but we are not immune from this national teacher shortage. Teaching is hard and only getting harder. A policy that is a fraction of 1% of our yearly district budget does right by teachers who go above and beyond every day and is proactively solving a demonstrated problem. I worry that we are thinking about this like passing the policy means we will have hundreds of children of employees seeking to attend Lebanon schools. That is just not what the data shows. The superintendent survey to all employees, not just teachers, spoke about 15 staff members who were interested, some of whom do not even have school-age children yet. To be honest, this seems like a no-brainer to me, which is why I'm up here, with benefits that outstrip the negligible costs. You're keeping 15 staff members in Lebanon School District, 15 people who want to stay here despite making less money each year due to our wages not keeping up with inflation and hoarding their sick days to be able to take parental leave in the first place. 15 people who are committed to students, attending sporting events, creating unique project-based lesson plans, and producing Shakespeare plays for the whole community to attend. I also worry that taxpayers do not understand the realities of my job or of your jobs, especially with how much has changed since COVID. Working in public education is very difficult, as is governing public education. A school district is not something that can be run solely like a private company. Education is a public good, and research shows that teachers are the most important in-school factor for student success. There is no clear bottom line on educating a child or employing a teacher. This is a profession that requires sacrifice and heart, sometimes too much of it if you ask me. We are asking you to pass a policy that supports teachers, thereby supporting teachers to support Lebanon students. I want to thank the board for your thoughtful consideration of the policy 2 weeks ago. It was refreshing to see you all remembering that we are real people with lives and families outside of the classrooms that we give so much of ourselves to. I encourage you to pass this policy as is tonight. Thank you.
All right, is there any other public comment in the room? Is there any on Zoom?
Yes, we have 2 public comments. First, remote Lebanon resident to panelists.
Could you state your name and ward for the minutes, please? Are you there?
Lebanon resident, you are muted.
Just a moment while we have some technical difficulties. Apologize.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent. Good evening, Dick Milius, Ward 1. I'm here to offer comments on policy GJFAB. I've already written a letter to the board laying out my objections. I won't repeat all that material, but there are problems in 2 areas I believe are worth reminding you of before your second read tonight. The implementation problems of this policy are substantial. Once an employee's child is given a tuition waiver, that student will be in Lebanon schools through grade 12. Once given a seat, taking it back because a taxpayer's child needs it is so disruptive, I can't imagine it happening. If one student is enrolled, it's reasonable for the parent to expect that siblings will also be. Over time, the result will be to accelerate the need to hire additional teaching and support staff paid for by Lebanon taxpayers with no cost to the districts of residence. The cost per student in Lebanon is not negligible. It's over $20,000 per year. You cannot assign that number to in-district students and not to others. It's a real number and a real cost that this policy requires the district to eat. Another point is that every benefit that district employees receive is negotiated in collective bargaining agreements. Salary, health, dental insurance, vacation time, sick personal leave, pension contributions, retirement bonuses, everything is specified in labor contracts. Well, Maybe not everything. Everyone gets free parking. But that's about it. Unilaterally giving a very large financial benefit to a subset of employees is a move that will come back to haunt this board when it bargains on behalf of Lebanon taxpayers with the unions. If you're truly convinced that you need to offer additional financial benefits to recruit employees, why not offer signing bonuses? At least that wouldn't require the district to absorb the cost of educating a student for up to 12 years. And I hope you'll consider these serious issues when you discuss this policy tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other comment in the room? There's more comment on Zoom. I apologize.
Mr. Wood, you had your hand up. Would you like to speak for public comment?
No? Is there any other comment in the room? Okay. All right, we will reopen public comment at the end of the meeting. So move on to correspondence.
Yes, there's one letter, it's from Richard Miles, and it was in reference to his opposition to GJFAB.
Yep. All right, that moves us to the consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the public minutes from May 8th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the public minutes for May 8th, 2024.
Get a second? Okay, moved by MJ, second by Mary. Are there any corrections or additions or changes to the public minutes from May 8th, 2024? All right. We have John Dodgemont is on the Zoom, so we're going to do roll call votes for this. All right, so we're voting to approve the public minutes for May 8th, 2024. Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
That's me.
Okay. And John?
Yes, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So he just needs to stay.
Oh, sorry, that's right. John, do you need to say where you are, why you're there, and why you're not here, and that you're alone?
I am in Washington, D.C. on a school bus with 8th graders on the trip.
He's on a school bus. So it's hard to hear. He's in Washington, D.C. with a school field trip. Can we get it turned up a little bit? Is that possible? Can you say something else, John, just so we can get a volume check?
Sure, I just need my closer to my mouth. That would work better.
It's the fan. It's okay. We can turn it up. Okay. Thank you. Yes? Yeah. We do, but they're not here, so we'll get back to that. Thank you. All right. We are going to go on to a motion to approve the nominations, renominations, and acknowledge the resignations and resignations. Can I get a motion to that end?
I'll make a motion to approve the nomination and resignation sheet dated May 22nd, 2024.
Okay, motion by MJ, second by Richard. Thank you. Are there any questions, observations, comments about the sheet?
Actually, we have one question about the substantial differences in some of the pay rates for the replacements. I'm just curious, are those all part of the negotiation? Is it just you?
It's part of the collective bargaining unit. Matches with their education level and how many years of teaching.
Understand?
I can add just one thing. The difference isn't necessarily what was in the budget. For example, if we knew someone was going to retire, this person is showing their actual salary this year. Or if we knew they were going to retire, we budgeted on master 6. So there's a difference between what's budgeted and what new person is maybe less. Think about Susan Isabel, for example, who's going to retire, so we budgeted for the place that had a lower amount of what she's making. So, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we're going to vote on the motion to approve. We have to vote on the motion to approve the nominations and resignations. Again, roll call. Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to our student report. Laura.
Hello. I haven't been here for a while. Sorry for my attire, by the way. I just came from a lacrosse game. You couldn't tell. So right now, Student Council is preparing for Spring Fest, and that's supposed to be in the next week. Also, finals are right around the corner for seniors, and then as well as everyone else at the high school. Shakespeare classes, they're getting ready for their plays, which will be held at the SAU. So we'd love it if you come support the seniors. The Common Good Funds, they were recently used. So for the Diversity Club, they got a drumming group to come to LHS, and it was very nice to see that. It was very fun. It was very interactive. They had us dance and all of that. And then also GenLink has currently used the Common Good Funds as well to purchase fabrics to make blankets, which we will then be donating to local charities. Council elections are also being held right now, and we will find out who will be on council for next year by the end of this week. And then senior nights for sports, they're also coming up now. Lacrosse for girls had their senior night tonight. Softball is also tonight, and then boys lacrosse is tomorrow. And then there was money went into buying an electric bike for the school, and I work with a student who uses that electric bike, and I just wanted to say how much we appreciate it. And this student is now riding 1 mile to 2 miles a day, and it's just been wonderful that he's gone out and done exercise.
Great, thank you. Do I have any questions for Nora? Thank you, this is super thorough, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we will now move on to what was formerly 10E, discussion and action to approve the donation of $8,000 from First Class to Lebanon Athletics. Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve a donation of $8,000 from the Carps Classic for Lebanon Athletics.
Second by Mary, motion by MJ. Any additional questions or comments on this?
Can somebody say some words about what the Carps Classic
For those people who don't know what it is, yes, can we get definition for those who are new?
I might turn to Paul for exactly the history of it, but Carps Classic has been a long time basketball tournament in the region. It used to be at the CCBA for years. For various reasons, they were for a new home. I think it kind of stopped around COVID, so it started up this year was great. And the deal we made was they could use our facilities. They charge, it's regional, they charge admission, and to basically be for the reps and stuff. And the deal, they said anything they make above the cost, they cover the cost, they donate to the school. So that's why we're glad we can help them, and we're various, I guess maybe it should be, but I wasn't expecting $8,000. Maybe that's a little year for them, I don't know. It's a good legacy for the kids.
Wonderful, thank you.
Heard lots of positive feedback from the community. Really excited for us to be hosting it, and it's a great event.
Mary?
I'd like to thank my brother and his group of people who volunteer, because they've been steady volunteers for like 40 years at least. So, and all the money that they do raise above what the costs are have always gone to youth of Lebanon. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was just going to say, my son played in the tournament, and it was beautifully organized and just an amazing community event. So I can't thank them enough. It was great.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and vote on the motion to approve the donation of $8,000. Again, roll call vote. Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
All right, thank you all. Thank you very much. Okay, that
that will move us back to the SAU leadership team update, the superintendent update.
I have a brief update tonight. So first item is the early childhood care room MOU with the Boys and Girls Club. I did receive an initial draft from them that needed further work, and I've received some positive feedback, from other stakeholders, just concerns around the possibility of this program moving to the Hanover Street School. So we have scheduled a community forum to be held on May 28th at 6 p.m. at the Lebanon School Library. So it'll give an opportunity for our community members and other stakeholders to give us feedback on the proposed project. Second, on the airplane build project, we are steadily preparing the space for the project. Our facilities team has done a lot of work for that, so I'd like to thank them for that. We started recruiting mentors. We have a nice handful of mentors ready to go. This month and into next, we'll be doing a kickoff for the fundraising event. We've already fundraised $200,000 of the $250,000 that is needed for the plane, although I think we're going to raise our target a little bit so we can get some additional tools. This week I accompanied 5 students with Dr. Robinson to the Rotary, and they were really excited about the project. Next, AP testing at the SAU. So I'd like to thank the Lebanon High School staff, the SAU staff, facilities, parents, and students for their work in collaboration during this time. So it was a really successful event. Those of you who have visited the SAU this week, the fire department has been in working with our technology department to get their spaces ready for this June. So we anticipate them moving in within the next couple of weeks. And just wanted to remind everyone there's lots of activities going on at each and every one of the schools. So I encourage you to come on in and join us. And just to highlight, Lebanon High School graduation is at June 6th, if anyone would like to attend. If you'd like to attend, if you could just RSVP to myself and Principal Smith. And that concludes my update.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent?
Just one quick question about the May 28th community forum. Will that be available online?
Yeah,
as well?
we also have a Zoom link as well. Thank you for that reminder. And I will send a reminder out to the community on Friday and then on Tuesday after the holiday weekend. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the superintendent? All right, move on to the business administrator update.
Good evening. I included in your packet 3 reports. I kind of want to put them together and then certainly answer any questions you may have. The usual monthly expenditure report shows that we have about $2.1 million left. We're 95.84% expended. This is through the end of April, so this information is already 2 weeks old. In conjunction with that, the revenues show that we're projected revenue. This is revenues compared to what we projected during budget time. $29,000 in the black, I guess you'd say, a little bit more than we budgeted. I didn't see any. I mean, there's some pluses and minuses. The Medicaid reimbursement is lower than we budgeted, for example, but some of those numbers will move a little bit. But I think Medicaid will be lower than we budgeted, for example. But anyway, you put those together, and the fund balance sheet is really what I work with over the summer. Well, this is sort of this is not meant to meet any sort of accounting standards, but hopefully it's just understandable. So if we have 2.1 remaining, I have to reserve some money that I know is going to happen at the end of the year with coming adjustments. For example, $80,000 in food service. What I'm saying is that we budgeted $20,000 to offset food service being in the deficit. I think we're going to be somewhere around $100,000 in the deficit. So that's a journal entry. It's not money moving hands. That's accounting. Reserve money for athletics. What I mean by that is that we have, through most of this time in the spring, we pay our stipends out after the sports. We have to true up the money we spend on fuel for the buses and stuff. So some of this late spring stuff doesn't really wash out until the middle of June. And I already moved some money from special ed. They said they needed around $400,000. I was hoping that exaggerating, so I moved some, but they are still saying they need the same amount of money. So it's $280,000. So you can see that would leave us with 1.6 million. We have extra revenues, I added those in, so just under 1.7 million. And just using our regular budget. Remember, we have $1 million offset taxes, so that means we have $1.7 million fund balance. So that's, you know, grand scheme of things, that's good. We're not short money or anything else. But we promised the taxpayers we have $1 million offset taxes, and we wrote the warrant that saying that no capital reserve funds are funded unless there's $1 million. So the first piece is hitting that $1 million. So the retained fund balance, I don't want to bore you too much, but those of you that have been around a while, you know that the voters allow the district to retain up to 2.5% of the total assessed value of the district. Kind of emergency, I guess, for lack of a better word. Last year, we retained $889,000. So when I do the books over the summer, any money that's left, actually under expended plus excess revenue plus that retained fund balance, and as a state, that's a big pot of money. I have to report that, and then you return that money to the taxpayers, fund your cap reserve, and maybe turn back more or retain it. So that's how you have to think about it. So worst case scenario, we would retain less. It's 2.5% of the total assessed values. Obviously, that typically grows every year as the assessed value of the town grows. So we will probably be allowed to retain somewhere near $950,000, I'm guessing. Instead of retaining that full number, we would retain something less than this projection, so we're on something like $34,000. But I also want to note that for the first time, I haven't really looked at how much money we have in non-personnel POs in previous years. This year we ran that, and we still have $3 million in non-personnel related purchase orders. So the accounting system reserves money for salaries, reserves money for benefits, and that SFO, and remaining is $3 million. So I still got to believe that we're going to be able to find that $155,000 in those POs once they close out. And I do have administrative assistants trying to close out the POs. So just understand that I'll say you open that PO last August for such and such expense for someone's reimbursement. Well, reimbursement might come next week, so like they drag their feet more than I want them to. I can't get out too much for that. But that's what we're working on now. I think we're in a perfect world, and every other year I haven't really talked about the retained fund balance because that's just money that sits there for lows. But we might have to sort of retain a little less this year to be able to fund our $1 million and then our cap reserves. Does that make sense?
Quick question about the money that we do retain for capital reserve. Is that investing? Is that what we?
Yeah, we have an investment policy that's part of our policies. Yeah, but in all practicality, cap reserve funds for schools and towns, schools included, doesn't matter if you're separate from the town, they're by statute, they're controlled by the trustee, the trust funds of Lebanon or whatever town you're in. So our funds are invested according to our policy, but under the purview of the selected position of the city, called trustee of the trust fund. I write them a check and they invested in these vehicles that through Citizens Bank invested. So they're invested conservatively, but we don't, I have to write a letter and prove to them that you guys approved it before they send me a check or whatever. So it's kind of a process.
Yeah, it's nice to know that it's not just sitting there losing value to inflation or whatever.
Right. Here's the question.
Are there any other questions for Tim?
That?
It hit me pretty early.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. So we'll move on to the District Director of Equity Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
Hi, everyone. I have actually just a very brief update, and it is about the ELA program. Would you like to hear that now or in the agenda when it was originally slated? It's very brief. Great, I'm standing here now. As you all know, we are working toward bringing forth the second phase of our ELA pilot. That will be the knowledge and reading comprehension building component of the curriculum. The team met yesterday for many hours, and our resource selection committee did an excellent job of analyzing the feedback from our 1 unit spring pilot. The decision was taken that we need to bring on board the 2 building principals for deeper analysis and further input, and that's going to take place tomorrow. So we want to make sure that before we come to you with the proposal, we have the full picture, and we'll bring that to you in 2 weeks. But I am pleased to share that we were successful in being awarded a competitive grant related to this pilot program. The Leading into Literacy grant was awarded to both Hanover Street School and Mount Lebanon School by NHED. It totals over $45,000 to support the program, which really allows us to implement whichever pilot program we choose fully and completely in the fall. We're really excited about this, and this selection was made based on our committee's alignment to research-based best practices in early literacy, so it's a testament to the achievement of this committee. And I'll share more about who was part of that committee when I join you in 2 weeks with pricing and a full proposal. Any questions right now? All right, thanks very much.
Thanks. Okay, so that moves us on to unfinished business. Start with discussion and action. Well, second reading of various policies, GJFAB, the new revised JFAB, BBBA, and BBBE. So I think what we'll do is we'll make a separate motion for the GJFAB, and then we'll take the other ones as approved for the second reading. So I'll make a motion to adopt policy GJFAB as written. Okay, can I get a second? All right, second by Richard, and discussion.
So I have a couple questions, but I'll kind of start with the big one or statement. I guess when we originally looked at this policy, it was going to be a cost of 25% of the district cost when we get the language right. But then as discussion went on at the last board meeting, we got it down to no cost. But I think when we got it down to no cost, it was under the understanding that for at least the New Hampshire-based students, we would be getting the adequacy aid of a little over 4,000 and change for those pupils that live in New Hampshire. I did a little investigation and looking at how the fiscal year 24 adequacy education aid looks, and it appears that students who are not residents of our district, their current town would have to agree to tuition them to Lebanon for Lebanon to get paid the adequacy aid. So I'm a little concerned now that we would be doing this at no charge, because I think that we at the very minimum should at least be getting the adequacy aid number for the students that we have in. Otherwise, that is unfair burden on the taxpayer. So I think the policy should be changed a little bit. But I'll let Tim speak to this a little bit more, because I think he did some investigation on this.
Yeah, I did talk to the Department of Education, and it was, I don't know if I misspoke, but it wasn't clear enough. So ADM is average daily membership, and there's a couple of types. There's average daily membership for attendance, -A, and for residency. So if we're doing our per student calculations, any child attending our school counts. So that way, ADM do get the ADM, but the one that counts for the money, which is average daily membership residence, goes to the district, the student's home district. The DOE is clear to me today on that. So when we do our reporting, enrollment reports through our I4C system, don't ask me what I4C stands for. It's a system that reports information to the Department of Revenue, Department of Education. Where you live as a student is part of that file. And so the district where the student lives gets that $4,100 all the time. So in some cases, if they tuition kids in, say that we charge them $20,000, the district effectively pays us $16,000 because they get the $4,000 and sends us a check of $20,000. So the only piece of the whole cost thing remains the same, meaning that we're filling empty seats, so the theoretical additional cost is negligible, but there would not be revenue that the Lebanon receives unless we charge tuition to to be their sending district or a parent or something, we would not get the adequacy aid from the state.
Could we set the tuition to be what the adequacy aid is, and then try to enter into negotiations with surrounding areas that they would send us that money for that student?
Sure.
I guess, just to follow up on that, you said a lot of words and they have, no, it's fine, but I know that they have a lot of technical meanings, so I want to be clear. So I have a sort of similar question, which is, I mean, I would say, could the employee negotiate with their district to say, to like, have the district send the equivalent of the adequacy aid? And I'm a little unclear on how the money goes in and comes out, and whether, like, if we're in a different district and if I'm pretending I'm the other district and somebody comes to me and says, I'm not going to send my kid to your school, I'm going to send it to this other school, and I just want you to basically transfer the adequacy aid from your district to that district. Is that what we would be saying? Is that not really how it works? Can you?
Well, as a theoretical, I would say this, that a district has to offer school to kids. They could say, I guess they could say that, or they could say, here's your second grade option, or here's school year you want. So, like, I don't know how there's any stick to make them send a kid to that.
I don't know that there's a stick, but I'm sort of asking, like, is it based on what you're, like, the part that I'm not sure I'm understanding exactly is that you're saying the adequacy aid isn't actually like a lump sum of money that gets sent to the district where a student attends school. It's sort of two sums of money. One sum of money that gets sent to wherever there's a bunch of students, and then another sum of money which gets sent to where a student is in the district.
No, I don't think there's, so we have called 1,600 kids in our district. Like, if you look at, after I talked to you, if you look at the chart of how much money we're sending you, our ADMR is based on like 1,300 kids, something like that. Because that's how many kids live in that area. So it's $4,100 times how many kids live in your district, whether they go to this public school or, you know, if we send it someone else for special ed somewhere else, we still get $4,100 plus some other stuff. So it's, each school gets a sum of money based on the number of kids that, according to that IRC system, live in that district.
So does the reverse happen? Do we send students to other districts and keep the $4,100 for that student?
Special ed related wise.
Yeah, or if we had a manifest hardship case, tuition to other districts.
So there is a fairly useful rationale for coming to an agreement between districts that you just send the money with the students. Like,
we keep the $4,100. So if we send a kid to Hanover for some reason, they send us a bill, my office pays the bill. Meanwhile, on the revenue side, I know it's complicated, but unlike our checkbooks where it's all in out of money, we pay this bill here. Meanwhile, we're getting $4,100 for that child that isn't in our district because we're paying somewhere else. So then that comes down.
Like, if we have, CareSouth has a very similar policy, so the teacher goes down there and takes no Lebanon kid, that money stays with us. It has not been requested out.
So what happens to Vermont residents?
And no, I mean, even last week, in no way would we get any revenue for that person. I mean, there's other, we're talking adequacy, right? So I don't know, you know, if there's federal grants or whatever, I don't know, but we're talking the adequacy that comes from the state of New Hampshire.
And can you, so from the business administrator perspective, do you think, is probably a better word, that admitting students of our employees represents a burden to our taxpayers?
Well, I think.
So, like, what would be our rationale for charging something, whatever it might be?
I mean, mean, outside of just an economy, I'd say scarcity. So when you charge for something, it brings value to it. So I do think that, and do that with what you will, but when something is free, you might overwhelm the system more than you need to. So that's one thing. It's not going to cost us anything. If we stay below what we can handle with our current staff, it's not going to cost us. In fact, it will help us in what do we pay. This rate ADM does pay. So we have 1,600 kids if we let 100 kids in. Now we have 1,700 kids, and that number is bigger, so our cost per student is lower. So that does help in how much we're spending per student side of things. But as far as hurting us, I don't agree. The letter said that we're missing around $25,000 a kid. We don't. These are spaces that are not filled, so it's like it's fake money. You're not making 25 grand in those space now. So putting a kid in that seat, you could have gotten $4,100. We thought I was mistaken, but you're not paying anyone for that. So really, the issue I think of what we charge is how you make sure that you have room for everybody, so it doesn't become a burden by having more teachers.
But
I don't know.
at that point, if we got to the point where we felt like it was being abused, which I can't imagine that would happen, then we can change this policy. I mean, like this, like if
This policy is really designed, like I know there's a couple of grade levels at certain parts that we wouldn't be able to take a non-resident student in admission.
right, like so
Because that would push
I
us
don't think,
over.
based on discussions that we had at our last meeting, I don't think there's any intention from this board that we would get ourselves into a situation where we're having to hire teachers to support this policy. Like, I think if we get to that point, then we need to have a different discussion. But that's not my understanding.
So one thought that I have had about that, and I think I do want to register that I am actually concerned by the fact that we are not getting the advocacy. I do actually think that's a pretty substantial change to the discussion that we had last time. I think that to the extent that we were able to look at students of employees as, you know, bringing in sort of the same amount of supporting revenue as any other student, that's one thing. Looking at them as actually not bringing in the same level of revenue as any other student does feel a little different to me. So I will register that as a concern that I have at this point. But I think also, in terms of what the future might hold for how many people, you know, took advantage of this policy or don't, or we don't know, we can't know, that's the way the future works. I would be supportive of putting some kind of requirement for annual review and reauthorization, or every 5, it's some kind of review process for the board where it says we do have to look at how much this is costing the district. We do have to actually examine that on an annual basis, a biannual basis, something, so that, because obviously you can always pull a policy back, but that's not really what happens in real life. Nobody's sort of going around saying it's not built into most of them. I could see a world in which we would be wise to insert something which requires us to review this regularly.
Review the policy versus like have the application. So like
yes, review the policy, but I would say to me it would be not just look at this policy, but actually require a review of how many students are taking advantage of it, and whether this is, like, to what extent is this being utilized, how much is this potentially impacting sort of seats in classrooms. I think that, like, requiring ourselves to examine that on some regular basis does seem reasonable to me.
So I think that the way the policy is written, it supposes in paragraph 3, it supposes that that's what Amy's doing, right? That the superintendent is keeping track of, because it's all at her discretion. So she's keeping track of enrollment.
But the superintendent is not the representative of the voters, of the taxpayers of Lebanon. So I think that requiring ourselves as the representatives of the taxpayers of Lebanon.
So what I was about to say, let me finish my sentence. What I was going to say was that the superintendent is keeping track of that, so I do think that that information is going to be available. But when we're talking about doing a review, this is not going to be something that's going to require extra time or energy beyond maybe reporting to us that the
where we are with all of this enrollment and how many people and all those numbers that you're talking about. So I'm agreeing, I'm just saying that that is something that is sort of built into the fact that she has to be able to exercise discretion on the allowing in of students.
So one thing that we could do is if you feel like you want that language added, we can make a motion to amend the policy, see if this board feels like that, if you have an idea of the language that you'd like to add, then we can vote on that and whether we add that to the policy or not.
I mean, I think I'd be curious to know if the business administrator and the superintendent have suggestions about sort of, because I think the things that to me that would be relevant would be how frequently should we be studying an issue like this? Should it be every year? Should it be every 2 years, every 5 years? I don't know. That would be one question I have. I don't have enough knowledge of sort of classroom planning and sort of how far out we project things I don't feel like I can intelligently weigh in on that at this point. I think that the other question would be, do we, and this isn't really a question for them, it would be a question for us, do we want to set the bar at, we have to actually overcome a hurdle, like we have to reauthorize the program every so often, or do we want to set the bar at, we just need to review and make sure that, but I think that the concept of guardrails or something does feel appropriate. I think, I've appreciated the comments on both sides of this issue. I think that the idea of getting out ahead of a crisis, the idea of being supportive of retaining teachers, like those to me are very worthwhile and important. At the same time, I think that writing a blank check is not something that I ever really like to do, especially using somebody else's money. I think that like when we don't know how much something is going to be used, it's a little tricky. When it is it is a financial benefit to a subset of a particular group, I want to be supportive of that, but I also do think that guardrails might be appropriate. And so I guess I don't have a particular proposal. I would look to this group to weigh in on that because that's what we do.
When we initially talked,
She asked the question of Amy first. So
Sure, I think one of my suggestions would be to, at budget season, when we're looking at class sizes, that an addendum comes in about students that are non-resident employee district and where they fall and how they align to that student enrollment. So this year we've done a great job just kind of tracking where we are, looking ahead where we'll be in the next couple of years. So we know where our key spots are going to be. And then being able to have those conversations in real time at budget season, I think would be important. So, one other question.
I think another place where that could happen, Amy, is we've set May 15th that the request needs to come in. So before we can set a review time for this board prior to that. So in April sometime, we can do that. I think the other thing that we, in policy committee, when we were talking about this policy, one of the things that we discussed is sort of like thinking about this first year as a pilot kind of year, see how it goes, and try to avoid putting too many parameters on it because we don't know exactly what those might be. So I think it is also reasonable if we want to put some statement, at least in this going forward, to say that we'll review this in a date. Like I mean, I'm not opposed to that language.
I would just like to clarify, because I think we're on the same page about this, but I just want to make sure that like students admitted under GJFAB, if the policy were ended, would not be forced to leave. And I think it would be if we're going to add an amendment to the language of the policy about review, it should probably also include students admitted under GJFAB. Should GJFAB be discontinued, students admitted under the policy will not be forced to immediately leave unless the employee also leaves the district.
And I think if we're going to be realistic about it and think about, because one of the reasons we've talked about this is because we are thinking about the students themselves, right? Students center the students. I think we'd also not want to, we would say that like their siblings, because if we're talking about someone who enters into it as a second grade and then we discontinue it and they're
kindergarten sibling, now we put an undue burden on our teachers because we're having them send both kids to 2 different schools. So I think we have to put in language about the siblings and then people, if we were to continue. We haven't worked out that language yet, but I think we have to be, I would have to support that because I feel like that would cause more problems than it solves.
I would agree with that point. I'm a little fuzzier on that one, but that's okay. I think one other way we could do this, or in addition, so for with our finance policies, we have a limit where, and I'm not gonna get the specifics right, but we sort of say like anything below this level, you don't need to bring to us. If something changes, you spend more money on whatever, anything below $10,000 or whatever, we don't need to see. You have the authority to do it, assuming it was already budgeted, blah, blah, blah. Anything above that level, we want you to notify us about. I could see doing something similar with like number of students, where we sort of set a, not a cap exactly, but a trigger point of saying, look, if we're talking about less than, 20 students, like we don't, this is not material to the district in this way or whatever. I'm not making up these numbers, but that could be an additional, I'm not sure I'm saying that would replace any of the other things we're talking about, but that could be an additional point to say like, hey, if this starts to get to be above a certain percentage of our student body or whatever else, we need to hear about it, that needs to be raised, that needs to program needs to be reauthorized or something. That could be another guardrail.
I'm just going to ask John if he has any comments, if he's still there, since I can't hear him.
I am here, thanks for asking, but I really don't. I think everyone's raising the same sort of questions that I would have. If we remember to the last meeting, I was really in favor of language around kind of a yearly request to kind of protect the district. And then my only other question would be if the language was vetted by our attorneys to ensure we are protected for students that are special ed or related services.
Thank you.
Second part, yes, the language, the policy has been vetted.
Sorry, somebody could turn the fan back on if they want, but I can understand.
It's okay. Okay, any additional questions, comments?
I think I was just reading from last time, there was questions around if this would be a taxable benefit. I think Tim mentioned he was going to look into this.
I checked with I texted our tax attorney, Joe Woodson, and he said he does not think it will be, based on his research and case law and stuff like that, so I can only tell you that.
So, I guess moving on, I just have a few more language questions. So in the second paragraph, it says, if there are any expected expenses related to special education, but I kind of get why the word is expected in there, because I thought we were always going to not be in charge of special education costs, so would it just say if there are any expenses related to special education? Because I think a lot of them are probably unexpected if they're, depending on what year they're coming into the district. And then, just in the fourth paragraph, it says the expectation will be that the student can remain in the Lebanon School District until grade 12, but I think it should be through grade 12. Sorry, can't graduate,
Sucker punch.
and then comma, or there is a change in employment status of the non-resident. So again, unless there is a change. And then on the 5th paragraph.
Wait, I didn't have that last.
So it said, so Shay.
I think it should still be unless. I think unless still makes sense in that case, even if we change it to through grade 12.
I think it should
unless
be.
there's a change in employment status.
Yes.
Unless, because it's
It can remain
It's unless.
through grade 12.
Yeah.
Unless there's a change in employment status. Because if there's a change in employment status, then they can't stay.
Okay, and then in the next paragraph, though, I think we need to bring it back to the full-time employment, because we open up, they have to be full-time. So I think it should read, non-resident employees who leave employment or transition to less than full-time employment within the district must withdraw their children from the district or pay 100% of the annual district tuition rate from the date their employment status ceases or changes.
Hold on. You've made a whole bunch of changes. Hold on a second. Thank you.
And I have some draft language for an amendment about review.
Excellent, Richard. Good job.
I was going to ask the same thing. I want to be clear on what that review amendment.
Yes. So you've got some.
Yeah, how does this sound? As a pilot program, this policy will be evaluated, and I've got either annually or we need to figure out how much time, be evaluated with respect to cost and availability. Should the policy be discontinued, students admitted under GJFAB shall not be required to leave the district so long as the employee continues to be employed by the district. I guess we better change that to full-time.
And the civil.
Yes.
I don't, can you read, I don't think we need the word pilot in that.
Okay.
I agree.
So just this policy will be evaluated annually?
I think we'll start with annually,
Yeah.
and then if we decide that we don't really need that, then.
Let's, I think we should specify when. Like, I think that Amy's, I mean, I'm a little concerned about budget season being when that policy, like
Yeah, I think April, before sort of applications or.
Well, maybe just March, because the April meetings get a little messed up because of school vacation, so March might be just a better time.
Except for we're just getting new board members.
April, I think, is fine too.
I think
then
the last
I'll
meeting-
know where we are for the following year.
Right, like the last board meeting in April, because that will be the time to make decisions.
I would feel better if we were specifying what is going to be reviewed. I think what language did you use there?
I said with respect to cost and availability.
Thank you, and thank you for putting that together. I would feel better if we specified the numbers that we're looking for, if we said, these are the things that will be reviewed annually, rather than just we say we're going to review it, because that can cover a lot of different, and I guess, like, Tim, I would sort of look to you for a little help in terms of, like, what are I'm trying to mush together, like, the data that we have to hand, the sort of how we look at this stuff, how we track it with what would make sense from a taxpayer perspective, like how do we, is it just number of students enrolled in the, I think one thing would be like, how many students are taking advantage of the program, like of this policy?
I think the placement of them is important too. So if there are 20 spread out to the district, that's different. That's a 20 in one grade because it's a teacher. So how many are?
Yeah,
That
okay.
would never be, I mean, that would not
Exactly.
happen.
No, but I
I'm
think-
just saying, that would, I mean, we put in the guardrail already, going back to your guardrail question, of Amy has discretion over who gets to be admitted because of class sizes.
But I think,
That's the review we want to do.
but that's the review that we're doing, so I think yes, so I think that like reviewing number of students per grade level.
You mean students who have taken advantage of the program per grade level, or just number of students total per grade level?
I think you need to be looking at both.
Yeah,
I think,
that's what
I think that number of students who are here under the policy, number of, in each grade level, and then how many students are in those grade levels. I think also the classroom, whatever the ratio is that we use to classroom size for those grade levels, like average classroom size or whatever else. I think we want to force ourselves to look at those numbers sitting together, where we say, look, we have, 22 students in this grade level, per class, and now for this one, we're getting up to whatever our limit is. Like, I think we want to force ourselves to see those numbers sitting together, because it's kind of hard to think about it if you're not looking at them.
I would actually say the elementary level probably by school too.
Yep.
Because you could have decent numbers in third grade right through again if they're all in one building, that could be a different issue too.
I mean, I think because I think that it's a fair point that's been brought up, that like we could get ourselves into a situation where, without sort of intending to, we wind up with a couple, a situation where we wind up saying like, oh geez, we need to hire more teachers in this place without examining the fact that that's due to this policy. I'm not saying that we would then automatically revoke the policy, but I think we would want to force ourselves to have that conversation. So those are the pieces that are coming into my head. I guess, and I'm still a little stuck on the adequacy aid, because I feel like maybe I am trying to understand how that cost and revenue situation would wind up working out. Because I get that we're getting, like, what percentage of the $4,100 or whatever it is that we get, whatever the adequacy aid is, like, what percentage of that are we getting because we have more students in seats? Like, I know doesn't work that way, but I am trying to understand.
How many kids live in Lebanon or are responsible by Lebanon times 4,100? Plus you get money for third grade and for special ed and stuff. It's as simple as that. How many kids call Lebanon their home? Boom.
Right, but then we're saying, so that's the thing. So are we really saying we get nothing for students? A student who lives in Canaan, who is a non-resident student who comes here, we're saying that 4,100, we get nothing for that student.
Because if it was a student who lived in Quechee, we would get nothing, right? Because for Vermont, we get nothing.
Yeah, but that's not a reason. That's just saying.
Well, no, but I mean, we do have to think about it sort of we have teachers who live in both sides of the river,
I do,
right?
but I think that those are different. I mean, but that's the thing, is that, like, we have.
Sorry, MJ had a hand up.
Yeah.
I think to go to that point, I guess I would like to see the policy based at the tuition, based at the adequacy aid number, the prevailing one for the year. And my reasons are, one, to handle the Vermont concern, so it's equitable and also fair to the taxpayers and fair to the staff. But the other part is I disagree with the point that someone said that there is no extra cost because we have the teachers, the classroom or the seat is sitting empty and no one's using it, because there are still consumables that are being used by the student. There are laptops, there are computer licenses that we would not necessarily have to fund. Those we could cut back on. While maybe we wouldn't cut back on the teacher's salary, we would cut back on the consumables. So the student is using that, which is another reason why I would like to at least see the tuition put at the per pupil rate for the prevailing year, and that is still significantly less than the 25% that was in the initial policy that was proposed.
So just point of order kind of thing, we already voted on the cost piece at the last meeting, so we just need to figure out if we're reopening that discussion based on the new information. Then we just need to get the appropriate motion, and we have to have enough people to agree to open that discussion.
I mean, I think that's good to know, and also I think that, like, I do have that, like, I think it is a different thing in my mind to say.
Right. So what Wendy's saying, which is a good point, is that we have to, if we're going to change the number, we have to have a motion, because we've already voted to accept the number at 0 as it was written for the first reading. If we're going to change the number, then we have to have a motion and a second, and then we have to vote on changing the number. We have to have support for that number change.
Well, okay, sure.
And what type of motion is that? That's what we have to figure out.
What type of motion is it?
To reopen that.
I guess
have to go back to.
Why is it different though? Because we haven't approved this policy. We just sent it through for a first reading. It's not an approved policy.
Right, I feel like it's approved to that. It's an amendment to the current language as written.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's.
Yeah, but I think, let's look at our minutes, because I think we had a formal motion about that.
We took it by pieces, didn't we?
Yeah.
We did it in pieces.
While you're looking that up, Tim, can I ask you a question? Sure. Do you know how many students we currently have in the district who we don't receive the $4,100 each for?
Not off the top of my head. We don't have any free tuition to our district. So if someone is here that we're not getting $4,100 for, it's because we're getting tuition from Plainfield, Grantham, Cornish, whatever. So.
And that's far in excess of $4,000.
Yeah, right. That's 20 grand.
Good job.
Yeah, so we had a motion on page 5 of your minutes. The motion was made by Wendy Hall to not charge tuition for this policy. Richard Ford Burley seconded the motion. There was discussion. The motion passed 8-0. So we've already had a motion on that. So
I guess that's based on more current information than we have.
Right, so there's a particular type of motion, so like you have to make a motion to like open that discussion or to rescind that vote. Do you know, like you have to, like there's a specific.
So if we figure out what we want to, so if we figure out how we, like, let's have the discussion and then we can figure out how we need to make the
Well,
motion.
we need to make, we actually need to make the motion before we have the discussion, so because we have to, we're discussing about the motion, so hold on, I have to tell you what the name of it is.
Tim, what's the current tuition rate?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Asking Tim what the current tuition rate is.
It's in one of our policies.
Tuition rate? Or
I got all the tuition rates.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask Amy a quick question. I seem to recall you reporting on class sizes during budget season. Is that correct?
Right, and then last month I've started to, at the first of every month, I will be reporting class sizes to you guys. So I think, first April 8th
No,
meeting.
we have, sorry.
The April
We have a policy that has the name of those motions.
I was just wondering if again, it's easy enough to pull out those numbers at budget time and just highlight how many.
Right, my intention is to give you those numbers every month so you guys can see those trends where we are in class sizes.
I think just as we're like having a conversation about how we reopen different parts of the policy and whatever else, I guess the one thing I want to call out is that it's going to be very hard to have a conversation about whether we're supportive of a policy in general if we aren't able to have a conversation about something as important as the cost of that or not. So I guess I would urge the board not to reject a conversation on that point, because it's going to be very hard to be supportive of a policy if the board isn't supportive of having a conversation about something like that. So just to put that out there.
So the non-area tuition for this year, elementary is 23,934. Grade 7 to 8 is 19. That's up to grade 6. 7 to 8 is 19,340. High school is 18,415. That's for 23-24.
And what's area tuition just for?
20 elementary 22,895. Middle 7th and 8th 18,599. High school 17,786.
And when I did that survey, just to give more context, about half the people that talked about they would be interested in this at some point when their kids are school age are from Vermont. So that is a considerable amount. So in terms of ADM, we would not have been able to repeat that.
While I'm looking for the types of motion, I just kind of want to point out that then asking for $4,100 is basically going right back to you asking for 25% of tuition, just so we know what we're discussing.
That's basically the same as what the 20% is. Okay. While we're looking for the name of this motion, it's going to take us a minute. Is there any other comments people would like to make?
Is there any, this is a question, so just because we're still looking for the name of the motion. I'm still wondering if there is a mechanism that we could use, create to request from a sending district. Like, I just, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me to have a mechanism, like, when we look at a manifest hardship placement, there are mechanisms between districts to sort of request that, and they can reject it. It can be, it can be turned down, but there is a process by which you can have
It's usually from board pieces, so it's not district to district. So when we had a manifest request in the fall, that particular parent came to us requesting because they're where they wanted to go said they weren't going to pay unless we paid, and then for that piece. So it's not really a district to district negotiation. I think if we chose to do that, we'd probably be pioneers in that piece.
I have that. Okay. So our policy is policy BEDH, board meeting rules of procedure and order. Number 14, from number 15 in that policy. Motions for reconsideration are not favored except when new circumstances exist or a perceived error has been made. Motions for reconsideration may only be raised at the same meeting as the original decision by a person who voted in favor of the original motion. Motions for reconsideration at a later meeting may only be considered when approved by 3/5 supermajority and only when the proposed motion is posted with the agenda for the subsequent meeting. Only one motion for reconsideration on an issue may be made at a meeting later than the meeting at which the original decision was made, irrespective of whether the first motion for reconsideration is successful. This provision shall only apply to the board as constituted as of the date of the original decision.
Doesn't that first part though, sort of like, wasn't the first line, didn't it say like, unless there is material, like there's a...
Right, so it's an indication that we can do it because we're not doing it at the original meeting or at the same meeting, then there has to be 3/5 of the supermajority. If we are going to move in this manner, it does seem like we need to have posted that motion on our agenda prior to.
Yeah, so that's our policy, so it doesn't really happen. So reading that, according to our policy, then we can do a motion for reconsideration at this meeting or at a subsequent meeting, but we would have to have a 3/5 supermajority to agree to do that, right? To agree to do the motion for reconsideration, and that motion would have to be posted at the meeting. Now, that motion has been posted in the sense that it's in our minutes for this meeting, so it is available at this meeting. So whether we split hairs, depends on what we consider posting. So we can say yes, it's available. The former motion happens to be available in front of us right now because it's in our minutes from last week or 2 weeks ago meeting. So the posting part we can fulfill. It's whether we have a 3/5 majority of people to agree.
Should I turn the fans back on?
Yes.
I know in our last meeting too, one of our teachers came up Jason Tutu, who is a former, he's a school board member in Cornish who has a policy.
I was just thinking about him.
Yeah, who he talked about that with the same intention we were for recruitment and retaining, and by proposing them paying that, it didn't really reap the rewards that they had. So I just wanted to put that back into our...
Yeah, and actually, I just want to insert here, I would not be in favor of reopening the discussion as to whether or not they should pay for it at this point, especially because the amount that we'd be asking them to pay is the amount that we had feedback saying dissuaded people from actually using the policy. I'd be much more in favor of just going ahead with it as it is for 1 year and seeing what that ends up costing and whether or not we want to add a cost for it in subsequent years. I think is something we could do, but I don't see it as a giant financial outlay or a giant risk to let them do it for free the first year. That is my 2 cents.
And we cannot, we don't consider a motion for reconsideration. So someone has to make a motion for reconsideration, has to get a second, and then we have to have a 3/5 majority, and then we have a motion to do a change. So everyone's clear on what our own policy is.
Well, I guess I'll make a motion to reconsider the amount of tuition that would be charged to non-resident students.
Second.
All right, so MJ's made a motion and Jessica seconded in order to consider the reconsideration. It's fun. We have to have a 3/5 majority, which is also fun for a 4 to 9.
10. It's 5.4.
So.
Somebody voted halfway last time.
I don't know what that means.
That means 6 because 5
No,
is
I
just a
think
simple
it's
majority.
probably 5.
5 is a simple majority though, so we know a simple majority is 5. So if we have a 3/5 supermajority, it would have to be 6 because that's what would be a simple majority for our purposes. So, you're gonna take a vote.
Can we have a discussion first?
Yes, I mean, we can discuss reconsidering.
Right.
Yeah, sure, let's
Please,
discuss
please.
that.
I guess like I would really appreciate it if the board would support reconsideration, because I don't like the fact that we're creating this bar for ourselves because I want to have a conversation about this. this. I'm not saying exactly where that conversation is going to end up, but I do not think that it is a great idea to just force this point through. I think that would be a mistake for a policy like this. I think that I really do. I think that we should be able to continue this conversation in a productive way, and I think that it would be a really nice thing if the board could, I mean, I think in our, I think that we had unanimous support for this policy in the last meeting. Am I right about that? It would be really nice if we were able to pass this, a policy like this, with unanimous support from the board. I would really like that. And I think that if the board refuses to even have a conversation on this point, given significantly different information than we had at the last meeting, I think that's a real mistake. I would appreciate it if the board would reopen the discussion.
Okay, so, what do you want to say? I was just going to say, I'm comfortable. I didn't base my decision, my vote last time on ADM. And just having had the conversation about this policy in policy committee, feeling like we discussed this in pretty thorough detail, having thorough discussion, I'm pretty comfortable. I don't feel that ADM didn't change my mind one way or the other, because I didn't base my decision on that. So I probably wouldn't support that, just because I feel like there's been lots of discussion around this. But
Do you want to say?
Sorry, I'm interjecting. We have had the conversation, and a lot of the families wanting to utilize it are Vermont families. I don't know that it makes enough of a difference to continue to draw out the conversation.
I don't appreciate the fact that that is a conversation that took place in committee. It did not take place with the entire board. We had one meeting about this, and I really respect the work of the policy committee, but I really think that it is a mistake to push something through like this without allowing the board to discuss it further.
So I'm equivocal with the fact that I think we did discuss it. We did have a discussion about this.
With different information.
Yes, but I don't think that for me personally, that information is not that was not what I based my decision on. So I had many factors that were affecting my decision at the time and still are. And so for me, this information does not change because I was always thinking about Vermont, and Vermont was not going to be considered in the same way. So, okay, Jessica, we have to let everybody else have a chance to say something if they want to. Kevin, you're looking like you.
I'm in favor of having the conversation, just in the hopes that it will generate consensus.
Okay. John, I can't tell if you.
Oh, John, your hand's up. Sorry, John.
Yep.
John, sitting there, sorry.
I apologize. I'm in DC. So I'm not necessarily in support of opening the discussion on whether we charge or don't charge. That issue wasn't really an issue for me. My issue continues to be just some of the language that is in the policy right now around, some of the things that I've expressed before. So I'm not really in support of opening the conversation again on the money piece, but I am open to having a conversation about the language.
Okay. So I think what you said, you're a little bit garbled, so I just want to make sure we're understanding what you said. That you are not interested in opening the conversation about compensation, but you are interested in when we get to the discussion of language of the policy itself, there are some things that you have that you want to talk about as far as the language of the way it's written, but then not having to do with
Correct.
tuition. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody want to say anything else?
I mean, I feel like we're having the discussion without having the discussion anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds to me like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us are already saying we don't want to increase the cost charged. So in a way, there's no point in reopening it, because, I mean, that's what it seems like to me.
I guess I respect that there are numbers. I also think that this board would be remiss in not considering the effect on the relationships between this board, that it can have to say, this is a major concern, that some of your constituents have, that some of your community members have, and that some of your board members have, and we're not going to allow discussion of that on a policy that it would be really lovely to be able to be in unanimous support of.
So, I mean, are you saying that you're not going to vote for it if we don't have a conversation?
I think that without the ability to ask a few more questions, like, that's all I'm asking, guys. This isn't, I feel like this is, I'm not sure why this is generating so much opposition. I feel like we should be.
I think it's not that I mean, for me personally, it's not that the conversation is generating opposition, it's that this has not changed what I think already. So
allow my perspective to be changed. Allow me to be persuaded. I guess I would appreciate the opportunity to be persuaded. And if that doesn't matter, then fine.
It's not a question that doesn't matter. I'm saying, for me personally, and again, I'm not speaking for others, I'm speaking for myself. I don't necessarily, I mean, I agree, like, we can have the conversation again, because I do feel that we have had this conversation at the last board meeting, which is why we had a motion on it, and we had discussion on it. And so I don't feel like my perspective will be changed, but I also, and that's me personally. I'm not just saying as a board what we're deciding. I'm saying what I think.
Honestly, if we want to have the conversation again, I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't mind. We can open it up. That's fine. I would vote in favor of opening it up.
Yeah. So I think we just need to call the question. So we're going to call the question. The motion right now is the motion for reconsideration of the previous motion, which has, the motion was made by MJ and seconded by Jessica, correct? I'll make sure. Yes. It's been a while. All right. So the motion is to reconsider the original motion. Huh?
To reconsider charging tuition.
The tuition motion, yeah. All right. So all those in favor of reconsidering.
Do we need to roll call?
Yes. We're going to do roll call. So all those in favor of reconsidering the motion, say aye. Okay, Tia.
Yes. Sorry. No.
No. No. Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm no. MJ.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Mary.
No.
Yes.
Jessica.
Kevin,
sorry. I'm looking at you.
Yes.
Kevin. Yes. Okay. And John.
No.
All right. So that is. What is the result of that?
4 yeses and 5 noes.
Yeah. 4 yeses and 5 noes, so it fails because it has to have a supermajority. So. All right. It brings us back to the policy itself. So we need to determine where we are now.
I have redrafted language while people were talking about the review. This policy will be evaluated each April by the board with respect to cost, uptake numbers, and classroom sizes in total per school and per grade level numbers. Should the policy be discontinued, students admitted under policy GJFAB shall not be required to the district so long as the employee maintains their full-time employment status with the district. Again, that was with respect to cost, uptake numbers, and classroom sizes in total per school and per grade level numbers.
So
maybe I should change total to district. In district per school and per grade level numbers.
So since that's a pretty substantial change, we can vote on that, whether we want to adopt that language as part of this policy. So if you want to make a motion to.
Okay, shall I include the language in the motion?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So, just like with that, just the language around that, this kind of statement, I think is sufficient.
Okay, I move that the language I just read regarding a reevaluation of the policy be entered into the policy.
I second that.
Motion by Richard, second by Wendy. Is there discussion on this motion?
Are we going to add some of MJ's language?
Yeah, I think we'll go through. Yeah.
Okay.
Was that enough?
We're taking bits and pieces.
The language.
I just need to hear it again.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to kind of distill it, but with respect to cost, uptake numbers, and classroom sizes.
And then you said.
And then in district, per school, and per grade level numbers. Does that address everyone's concerns?
So just you said in district per school.
Per school and per grade level.
Okay, thank you.
And then does this, and because we had the language before, and I don't know if this is in addition to, or
This was to supplant what I read before.
Okay.
So if there's something else to be added, it should be added then.
So we hadn't talked about the part that you mentioned before with regard to if students are already enrolled.
Yeah, sorry, that did include the should the policy be discontinued, students admitted under policy GJFAB shall not be required to leave the district so long as the employee maintains their full-time employment status with the district.
Okay. And so then my question I have here before was the question about siblings.
So we can add that, I think, unless you feel like it needs to be part of that statement, we can add that. I think it's,
We can have another motion on the siblings bit.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So can I just ask a point of order? So it seems like we're making a lot of substantial changes, and I'm in favor of voting on what Richard said, but I feel like before the policy gets final approved, I would like a chance to see it all put together again, almost come back for another second reading. I mean, is that something that we would do? Because it feels like we're making a lot of substantial changes on the fly right now, and I'm a little uncomfortable voting without seeing it all put together in the end on the final policy.
you've not been in policy.
Not anymore, it's been many years.
I think it's fine. I think
I
that's
can do that,
totally
and then
fine.
with these proposed changes, I'll do one more, send over to Jim O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
Just to give that nod, but I'm fine if we're there.
So we'll send it to third reading after we've added it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or back, just back for a
Back
second.
for a second
The
reading.
second reading.
I will learn all of this. I will get this right. at
It's
some
just
point.
doesn't normally happen, so. Okay. So we have a motion on the amendments as Richard has outlined them. That's seconded. Any other discussion on that?
I mean, do we need to vote on it if it's coming back in?
Yeah, we have to vote because we're adding it to the coming back. So the motion is to accept the language, amended language as Richard has outlined. Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Yes, siblings. So this is just the situation that I'm thinking of is if we have people who, we do this for a year, their children come in at kindergarten, right? Then they're in first grade the next year, there are siblings coming. We know the siblings are coming. Again, when we talked about this before, I don't want to have this be more disruptive to families than less disruptive. So I feel like it would make sense to have the siblings be included in whatever goes forward.
I agree. I think that not allowing a younger sibling for a lot of families would effectively kick out the established student.
Sorry, John has his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
That's, John?
Yeah, I just wanted to just mention that, you know, the one piece of language that really throws me is that the student remains in the district in perpetuity. And that is not language that I can support. And I'm happy to make a motion if others feel the same way. But putting the district on the hook when it is possible for resident students to fill a classroom, and I know we would want to work it out as fast as we could, but I can't support it when we get to a situation where it's going to fill a class beyond reasonable sizes.
Is there a specific, like paragraph that you're talking about, or just in general?
I'm sorry, because it's hard for me to look at two places on the bus. But it's the language that specifically says, once the student is enrolled in the Lebanon School District, they remain. And I am not comfortable with that language. I do like the language in the previous paragraph where it talks about they submit a request by a date and the superintendent responds by a date, which to me looks to be, it sounded to me the way I read it was yearly. However, the language of imperpetuity really bothers me and puts the district on the hook.
In just a quick response to that, well, I do believe we discussed the number of times when a teacher, parent would need to reapply. I thought we had a very substantial discussion on the reapplication every year being an overburdensome thing to do.
It was voted on.
We did. It was a
So
motion.
it's the same
thing.
as tuition, okay.
That one actually
Failed. So there was a motion made by Wendy Hall to set a reapplication schedule based on school transition time, so when they're moved from school to school. Tia seconded the motion, and that motion failed. So just for information for everyone. Mary, you're raising your hand, sorry.
John, was there an alternative to yearly reapplications that I'm not thinking of?
No, in my mind, it needs to be, from a school perspective. I think you can't give away spots. Not to say that that happens frequently in districts that have this policy, but it does. And we have to be prepared for that. And employees need to know that when they make that decision. This policy needs to be based on the employee's willingness to do this and take that risk versus us making it so for them despite all odds.
So I think there's a difference though between the reapplication. I think it's fine. The motion was specific to reapplication, so I think that that's one part of the process, and then whether we accommodate that person, continue to accommodate that person, the student, that's another thing. So I think that we can look at that language, whether we want to change some of the language around what happens if that so if that accommodation one year works, but the next year doesn't, and we're getting, I think again, in the elementary schools, that's going to pop the numbers up beyond a reasonable amount, maybe not as high as our policy states, but where our resident students or families will get uncomfortable. I think that we could potentially change that language somehow.
John, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Do we have a class size cap?
20 technically?
Well,
yes.
Yes, we have but it's bigger than what we normally, we have a written cap, policy cap, it's bigger than what we normally use in our
So how do we determine what we normally use? It's not the policy.
We have state minimum standards that the policy reflects.
Okay.
That may change when the 306 is eliminated. But
So how do we kind of calculate what we actually use if they're better than state standards, if they're smaller than state standards?
it's been sort of trending pieces of that. There, people seem to get pretty comfortable with 20 for the elementary pieces. We do have some elementary younger grades at 13, which I may say that might be too small sometimes to have producing learning groups, but we don't have, our policy reflects the state minimum standards.
What I'm trying to understand is at what point we would say no. Because I don't think wishy-washy language like are reasonable or making people comfortable, I don't think that's a good policy.
Right.
So
I mean, that 20 piece is there, and I think we also have to be conscious about keeping, do we want to keep space in, like we're one away from that cap size, from someone moving into Lebanon, right, like for there. So my thought is that there'd have to be some room, and there's plenty of classrooms with lots of room. There's just a few spots within the district, like our current 4th grade classes that coming up into 5th grade next year, they're larger than, I think they're at the spot where we're comfortable. But adding considerable more people, I'm not sure I would make that call.
Yeah, I was just thinking that the amendment to add that annual review with all that information would help mitigate this concern that John is bringing up.
I also have concerns about having that hard number of 20. Like Amy said, then what if we hit that gray area of just one student in the whole district and then we have to turn it away? I have concerns, and I know I brought this up last time, that the students, part of allowing them to stay in the district until grade 12 is that the social emotional cohort of these students. It's important to not kick them out just because we don't have space this year. And it's one thing if the parent then decides that they're going to work somewhere else, but just saying we don't have space anymore, is that going to affect them emotionally, socially, harm them for being kicked out when they didn't have any sort of behavioral academic issues, anything like that? And is that going to impede their ability to bond if they don't know if they have a spot year to year? I'm worried about their social emotional development if we don't provide them some stability.
The other thing is, remember, the classrooms need to have a balanced group of kids, so you don't want to overload one classroom. So you'll have to look at that when you replace them.
And I think within there too, it gives them some leeway that maybe we can't go to anniversary, but not left, but there's more room for that cohort.
And we talked about that before, that this is more of an issue in the elementary grades than it is in the middle and high school, just because of how classes are structured and how teachers' classrooms are designated in high school and middle school.
It seems to me that it'd be okay to leave it this way for 1 year and get some data on uptake and do some calculations and see how things are going forward. If we start to see a lot of people moving to Lebanon with families, then we might ring the alarm bells and say, okay, well, hold on, maybe we need to cut this off, or maybe we need to not admit more. Because I don't want to commit entirely to all siblings for that reason.
Everyone's got 12 kids.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we should try to accommodate siblings, maybe prioritize them over
Well, but if we
other.
stop the program, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And that's saying we have, every time someone is coming in, right, we're doing this application process and we're hoping that there are spaces or there aren't spaces or whatever. But I'm talking about once we've admitted someone. Then it goes back to the same question that Tia says. It's social emotional for the family at that point. Sort of the burden becomes, I mean, I would be really, I can't even imagine working at one district and having a child go to that district and having another child go to a different district. That would be untenable.
No, that's a good point.
What if you don't have the space for the sibling because it's another fourth grade? I mean, I understand your point, but if you want the sibling, but then we don't have the space because it's like another year, like you have the overcrowded fourth grade class, and that's the class the sibling needs to go in. And
right, so
I think that this is sort of when we were discussing this in policy. So lots of these questions came up. There was no clear answer, but it felt like at some point we could imagine all these scenarios, but then we could put those guardrails, parameters, all those things in, and yet we then might create a policy that's unusable. And so I think our general feeling was, let's just sort of go all in a little bit for year one, and then do a reevaluation process and figure out where exactly do we need to put. I don't think, given that we had 17 people indicate that they were interested in this policy, and not all of those 17 were actually of age to come to school anyway. So I don't think that we're anticipating.
My concern with that, though, is because we have discussed that this is a pilot project, a pilot year, let's see how it goes. And usually a pilot, you start with a small cohort, and then once you determine where you need to make adjustments to it, that's when you blow it out on a much grander scale. So I have some concerns starting out with a large and then having to ratchet it back. I think that is a much more difficult thing to do than if you did really narrow the scope in the first year as a true pilot and then see where it is and then start to add on things as you go.
I think it'd be really difficult just to do a pilot of this group and to choose who gets to go in. Just allow, looking at the data, out of that 50 that were yes now, not all of them are ready at this coming year. Yeah, in different levels. So I would anticipate like 5 or 6 for that piece. And I'll be honest, they're all, which is where we like to see it spread out over the schools.
I think one other thing that when we reevaluate this policy at finance and facilities, we talked about maybe looking at trends. What was the enrollment trends? And so maybe it's been a long time since we had Prismatic do that, and there's a lot of things in the city of Lebanon that have recently been approved and all that stuff. So maybe that would be a good, maybe within the next year, if we have money somewhere to just do an enrollment, a 10-year projection as part of, that wouldn't prevent me from moving this policy forward tonight, but that could be one thing that we think about as part of our.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is by virtue of what we've seen in terms of people who are interested in this, it's already a small segment of a very small segment. We're talking about 5, 6 kids of a potential 17 or 15, but that is spread across grade levels and not having a second. So I think we're sort of just already pilot size. So maybe what we say, like we want it to be, I can imagine we'd have a pilot less than 5 kids to begin with. It seems unhelpful. So for me, that's not.
So the first year, we're thinking of making commitments to, say, those 5 kids and all the siblings of those 5 kids?
Was that the question right now?
Question.
That's my question, but that's not everybody's question. That's just my question.
So do you want to start chunking up the language again? Or
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, John also probably want to get rid of the state.
There wasn't a motion to add this.
No, we had made a motion.
Does John want to add a motion to that? Because he said he was going to make a motion.
Well, we have to reopen, would it have to be the same thing? We'd have to get 3/5.
No, I don't think that we have to, because that was just on the application, not.
Oh,
I think his issue is more that once there is an application, that we commit through grade 12, more than, like, I don't think he's indicating that people need to reapply. I think it just needs to be a yearly review. Unless I understand.
Are we representing you correctly, John?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
I think that I really wish that I felt comfortable supporting this policy right now. I think that truthfully, with it feeling like there is a material difference between what we understood the previous meeting and what I understand now, while I still feel supportive of the policy in concept, and I want to be supportive of this policy, I think that, because I think it's important for any number of reasons, but I think that as written, with no ability to have further discussion on what I consider to be extremely material points, I'm not going to be able to support this.
So,
Do you want to make a motion around the language that you?
yeah, make a motion around including siblings. Yes. Never do that. So I will make a motion to include in the language of the added language that were admitted. I don't know what that sentence would be. Including siblings of children in should the program be.
I think that was reevaluation. That's not.
No, the previous. Not
The previous statement was, the policy will be evaluated each year by the board with respect to cost, uptake numbers, and classroom sizes, in district per school and per grade level numbers. Should the policy be discontinued, students admitted under policy GJFAB shall not be required to leave the district, so long as the employee maintains their employment status with the district. So you'd like to amend that to be, no, you
Wait,
have to.
Students and their siblings admitted, or students admitted and their siblings?
but just only if we discontinue the policy? You want the siblings to come?
No, I mean, I think siblings, well, yes, I'm just talking about.
So maybe a separate
discontinuing.
sentence.
I'm just talking about the discontinuing. So if, I'm under the way that's written now, if a sibling comes in and then 2 years later, another sibling comes, they're gonna apply at May 15th, if there's space for them, they're going to come in, just like the way the policy is written now. I'm just talking about siblings, if we discontinue the policy, we've already admitted these 5 kids, these mythical 5 kids, then.
But what about the situation where, I mean, we could still, even if we have the policy in place with regards to siblings, back to, I think MJ's thing is like if the sibling then comes into a very large kindergarten class.
That the policy would cover that the way it's written. So I'm not saying we're guaranteeing siblings forever. I'm saying if we I'm only talking about the discontinuing of the thing. I'm only talking about discontinuing. And even then, it would still be needing to apply because they'd be sort of grandfathered into this policy. They would have to apply just like everyone else. And so then they could be rejected if there's not enough space in the building. I mean, if there's not enough space in the grade level if they're coming in. I'm not talking about siblings in any other context. I mean, I assume all siblings would be applying, applying just like they would be doing once they.
And you would be okay if we couldn't?
I would be sad, but we'd have policy.
Yeah.
So we would have to, and I'm assuming we would make all accommodations that we could possibly do, but we've already said that if we're at our caps, we're at our caps.
So if the language said, furthermore, should policy GJFAB be discontinued, siblings of students admitted under the policy will be considered pursuant to this policy's stated application process.
Sure.
So they can still apply as per the rest of the policy,
Like
even if the policy is done.
They're grandfathered into the policy that there's siblings admitted under.
I was misunderstood. I thought
Well,
you
you don't
meant
have to accept
all
that.
siblings.
Yeah.
You don't even have to accept that.
At
The
first.
current policy.
Right. Yes. That is the motion that I'm making. To accept that language, as Richard just said.
So accept the amended
Who's the second?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know what I'm saying, I don't know what we're, is this like a friendly amendment to something that was
Yeah.
already adopted?
No, I think
This is an additional
I think it's
sentence.
just an additional.
And add
So-
a motion to add the additional sentence regarding the siblings to that language. Do I have a second?
I'll second
So
that.
we're not adding language, now we're not adding language to his previous statement, that was the
Well-
original motion, we're just gonna add another sentence.
We're going to add another sentence,
Right.
separate motion.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Appreciate it. It'll go into the middle of his, but yeah.
Yes.
that makes sense. Okay, so motion by me, second by Richard, thank you. Did we order?
Can we read it again?
Yeah. The motion is, furthermore, should policy GJFAB be discontinued, siblings of students admitted under the policy will be considered pursuant to this policy's stated application process. Which is to say, if the policy is discontinued, the siblings will still get to apply.
Yeah.
And just with every student considered under this policy, they will be applying.
With space, considering the space is there. Under the policy. Okay. Do we need additional discussion about this?
Does John raise his hand?
Yes. No? Okay, so we'll just call the question on this question now that we understand what the motion is. Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay. You?
So, do we want to, MJ still has stuff and John still has stuff, so
Yes.
which one do you want to take?
I think isn't my stuff all
I think
it's John and his perpetuity that needs to be taken care of.
Yes, I think MJ's all.
I would, I can make a motion to delete in that paragraph from the word once all the way to the end, so that the paragraph ends at, hold on, pulling it up, my other
So
screen.
it'll end with based on enrollment numbers, period, and that's where the paragraph will end. Eliminating the
Correct.
sentence that starts at once and non-resident students have been accommodated, all the way through to outlined in policy JIC.
Okay, So we're talking about paragraph 4, just so everyone's on the same page. The paragraph 4 right now reads, the superintendent shall notify non-resident employees whether or not their children can be accommodated by the district on July 15th. Assignments to a particular elementary school is based on enrollment numbers, and now John is suggesting that we delete the rest of that paragraph. Is that correct, John?
Correct.
I don't think you want it, because that paragraph talks about the change in employment status and non-compliance with behavior expectations, so I'm not sure. I think you want to just delete the, once a non-resident student has been accommodated, delete that, and then just put the expectation will be with the student. No, you want that, okay.
So I think what John wants is actually additional language saying that unless, comma, or unless the students,
No, I think.
was it class sizes begin to exceed?
No,
I think you want to pick up from the unless, or,
yeah.
No.
MJ, you're correct. It's the, I went too far with my deletion.
So you're
I
wanting
think
to
it's
delete.
instead of unless, I think it should be if.
Yeah, you're wanting to delete that part of the sentence. Once a non-resident student has been accommodated, the expectation will be that the student can remain in the Lebanon School District through grade 12. You want to delete that, and the next sentence would start, if there is a change in employment status of the non-resident employee or non-compliance with the expectation that the student will, if that's at the end of that, but.
But you have that to the end, like the student.
But you have to, yeah, you have to.
The student will no longer be enrolled in the Lebanon School District. That's good. Will no longer be enrolled.
But that's what the next, non-resident employees who leave employment.
Well, it includes the behaviors consequences part, so we have it.
So I wonder if we can add that, so, to the next paragraph, so non-resident employee who leaves employment or transitions to less than full-time within the district must withdraw their non-resident student or pay, I think we just need, at the end of that, we need to probably lift the expectations.
No, I think we should keep them separate because that's about payment, and this is about whether they can go at all.
No, but this next statement says
they're
that.
repetitious. This is a repetitious policy, so it's okay. I think we can leave it and just, it'll be fine. It's not the first repetitious policy we have, so.
But I think that when we were drafting the language of the policy, the statement about a change in employment was related to a trigger for not accommodating them through grade 12. So.
No, I mean, yeah, but I think it's fine. It doesn't change the meaning. The meaning is still the same. It's just redundant. Yeah, which again, first time. Not even the first time.
I guess the question is John okay with that?
Yeah.
Since it's his vote?
Yes, I am. How you discussed, I appreciate you helping me on my phone. It's terrible, thanks.
Yeah. It's okay.
What is the specific language after in policy JIC?
Yes, in policy, let's see, hold on. It's in the student will no longer be enrolled in the Lebanon School District.
Got it.
Couldn't even read my handwriting.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Because we're making John's motion.
I'll
right?
second.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
John's motion has a second by MJ. Thank you very much. Is there additional discussion on John's motion? So, I'm inclined to echo what Tia said earlier. I think once we let the students in, we are, if we're centering student mental health and centering student social emotional learning, and centering family continuity, and centering the family of the employee as well as the employee themselves, then I think that we owe it to them to keep them for the entire time.
So I think I understand, but I think that that's in an ideal world, and so we've already just said that we may not accept the sibling if there isn't enrollment involved, space available for them, so you're already kind of interrupting the continuity of the family and the social emotional bond, so I guess, I don't know, I kind of see both sides to it.
Are we ready to vote?
Tia's ready. Any additional discussion on this?
Again, I think the original discussion, going back to the original discussion around some of these pieces, I think it was sort of like if we're going to commit to these kids, we commit to them. And unless something comes up to,
I mean, again, it's more, it's
right.
Additional.
I'm in favor of keeping language the way it is because we're going to be reviewing it in less than a year. So, my 2 cents.
Any additional comments? All right, we're going to vote on this motion. So the John's motion is to delete the sentence about accommodating students through grade 12. Correct? Okay. Right, so we're going to vote on that. The motion is to delete the language. Tia?
No.
Wendy?
No.
I'm a no. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
No.
Mary?
No.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
No.
John?
Yes.
Okay, so that is 6 to 3? 6 to 3. Yes. All right, so the motion fails. All right, back to this policy.
So are we going to move to continue this to another second reading?
Yes, I think that's.
Can MJ just reiterate her, just so we make sure that we know the changes that she's.
Oh, yeah, I gave them.
Yeah, they're right there, sorry.
That was
Can you
like
let us
the
know?
expected one, the.
Say that again.
This was the expected expenses related to
Mhm.
special education.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, so it said
that language in
if there are any expenses
Right.
related to special education, so get rid of the word
I had the
expected.
same.
Yep.
And then,
You're getting this down, right?
I think,
We're all good.
yeah,
we're,
and then it was through grade 12.
yep.
So, and then non-resident employees who leave employment or transition to less than full-time employment within the district must withdraw their non-resident children. District tuition rate from the date under this policy will pay 100% of the annual district tuition rate from the date their employment status ceases or changes in the district.
Employment status ceases or changes, yeah.
Changes or ceases and
Ceases or changes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, an executive decision.
Yep, it's fine. So this is not changing substantively, it's just clarifying.
Right.
Yeah.
Just get a
Yes.
little nod.
Yes, so does everybody agree with these are not substantive changes, these are clarification changes? You feel all right about this? Yes, okay, great. All right, so then,
Did John shake his head?
John, do you agree? Sorry.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
I saw you nodding.
Okay, so what we were doing then is we have to make all of these changes. So I don't think we need a motion. We don't need to do anything with this. We're going to continue the second reading. We'll come back for an additional reading. But I don't think we have to make a motion about that, or do we need to make a motion about that?
I think we can just for
clarity.
just to make sure.
Okay. All right, so we need a motion to not reconsider, that's wrong. We need a motion to revisit this again with the new amended language.
So moved.
Okay, excellent. Moved by Richard, second by Mary. Okay, any additional discussion? All right, Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Now, where do we go from there? The BEDH, yes.
Question
Okay.
Same question after a little bit asked.
Oh, sorry.
So So I'll make a motion to move policies or adopt policies BBBA and BBBE.
I have a quick edit for BBBA.
Is it grammatical or is it substantive?
It is substantive.
Okay.
It is replacing, the fact is it's not a definition of residence/residency, it's a definition of place of abode or domicile. And so the definition should be place of abode or domicile, and then the definition.
That's fine. It's not content. Right.
Yeah.
No, because that's not substantive then too.
It's not.
It's all second, because we have a second.
I already seconded.
Oh, you did, okay.
That's BBBA and BA.
Can you say that again?
BBBA and BBBE.
Okay.
The motion is to adopt these policies as written.
And I just wanted to clarify, BBBE, I did speak with our legal counsel, and so under BBE, authority to fill vacancy, it does go to the city council.
Okay.
Instead of select board.
Sorry, for city council.
Good. Thank you for clarifying. Any additional discussion on BBBE or BBBA? Okay, so we're moving with the motion to accept them. What's the motion?
To adopt.
Adopt, sorry. Motion to adopt. Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Next, so I will make a motion to, we're moving on to new business. So we have 3 policies. I'll make a motion to move policies BEDG, FA, and FAA to the second reading at our next meeting.
I'll second. Okay, motion by motion by Wendy, second by Tia.
I just have a couple of minor things about those, FAC and FAA. There's a couple of sentences that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I just hope we can address those. In conjunction with what? The Finance and Facilities Committee, Facilities Director, and Business Administrator will prepare.
Which one are you? Yeah, okay,
Okay.
so
This is in policy FA-C.
No.
Or sorry, this is in policy FA in section C. I misread my own notes. Under capital improvement program, in conjunction, the Finance and Facility Committee, Facility Director, and Business Administrator will prepare.
In conjunction, comma.
In conjunction with.
In conjunction with.
In conjunction, it's in conjunction with. Stay away. That's
So,
right.
so is it directing the Finance and Facilities Committee in conjunction with the Facilities Director and the Business Administrator?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's just move the in conjunction with to the other side of Finance and Facilities.
That also works.
So what did you?
So he's saying, change it, just move it, so the Finance and Facilities Committee, in conjunction with the Facilities Director and Business Administrator, will prepare a blah, blah, blah. That is correct.
And then similarly in FAA, in the first paragraph, the facility plan shall be developed and drafted by the in conjunction with the,
Yeah.
is an issue.
So I think it's just supposed to be, shall be developed in conjunction, get rid of the by the, in conjunction with the Finance and Facilities Committee, Facilities Director, and Business Administrator, and shall be proposed. So it's just, those just 2 words that we know.
By whom in conjunction with?
No, they're all 3 in be developed. So we can just say, actually, we can get rid of the whole thing. The facility plan should be developed by the Finance and Facilities Committee, the Facilities Director, and the Business Administrator.
Works for me.
Excellent. MJ, yeah?
So I just have an overarching question on FA. Why do we, it says it's a recommended policy, but why, it seems kind of overkill in a statement of the obvious. So I'm just kind of wondering what the discussion was, and why we think we actually need to adopt this policy now.
I think it's a policy that we haven't had, and we looked back through the FAs, or the F policies. And I think, so the way that the policies are sort of built in the New Hampshire School Board, like the FA, like FAA comes after FA. So it seemed like we were missing sort of like the broader policy around describing what our intent is, and then FAA is like the next layer kind of policy.
Okay, and so then on that, this language though is New Hampshire School Board language specific, because I have a little concern about the policy statement, because it says as the board seeks to incorporate the most appropriate cost-effective risk management techniques for loss prevention and control and to overcome deficiencies in its physical plant. And I'm not sure that we have deficiencies in our physical plant, so I'm a little concerned about that language. And then it says it will strive to provide new and remodeled facilities. But I also have a little concern with that language. Instead, I would like to say it will strive to provide facilities that offer the best possible physical environment. But I feel like it's kind of setting it up that we're saying we're deficient and we don't provide good facilities now, which I don't think that that is the case. And I think with these few changes, it just makes it still that we're committed to having the best physical plan that we can, with the realistic financial fiscal constraints.
Well, I think it's, the wonder is, even if we don't feel currently we have deficiencies to overcome, it's sort of a statement of intent, because I think it's easy sometimes to put off committing to, like, at some point in the future, we might have deficiencies if we don't commit to making sure.
But it says we need to overcome means we feel we have them now, and I don't think that, I personally don't feel we have deficiencies. I mean, we definitely have things that need to be remodeled, repaired, improved, but
I think it's no different than like in our prismatic study thing, and identified some clear deficiencies. And part of the reason that we don't have those currently is because we have been working to address those. I think it's just statement of intent, but that's my personal.
Any other opinions?
I don't have a problem with the language as written. It's aspirational.
Agree with Kevin? Anyone else? Okay. Do you want to make a motion to change it?
I mean, that's all the rest is fine. I mean, I just think it's long, doesn't have to go forward.
Okay. All right, any additional discussion on FA and FAA?
And BEDG.
And BEDG, which is our meeting minutes policy.
And so we just wanted to also highlight section, what did I want to highlight?
I don't think you had BEDG in the motion, so.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Yeah, she made your motion.
The section that talks about whether we can review them or send corrections.
Oh, yeah. Where is that? Okay, so it's on section C4. Section C4. So this is talking about when we circulate minutes before the meeting at which they are to be approved. So this is when we do draft minutes.
Yeah.
So this policy says that, and we've done this multiple times, where we send out the, especially for committees, where we send out the minutes at a Google Doc to say, this is the minutes, and just what do you think about them? So according to this policy, that practice is problematic. And so instead, what this policy says is that board members may send suggested changes back to the minute recorder without copying the other members of the committee, and changes made by the board or committee to draft minutes shall be recorded either by 1, retaining the draft of the final approved minutes, 2, including notations, e.g. red line edits in the final approved minutes, or 3, outline described in the minutes of the meeting at which the board approves them. So I think that for our purposes, what we would probably need to be doing is to include the edit, make visual edits that the minute taker then makes based on committee members' contributions, which we can do in Google Docs. It's just that we can't go in and make those corrections ourselves. We have to send those corrections back individually to the minute takers, and they can make those changes, and those changes will be visible in the draft that gets adopted.
It's
Because
just a
otherwise it
mechanism.
constitutes a quorum.
Otherwise, it constitutes a quorum
Or
accidentally.
And we need to make sure that we're tracking changes.
Yeah. So we just have to make sure that all of those documents have track changes on, and those changes will be apparent. And we also have to make sure that we're taking good minutes so that we don't need lots of changes when the drafts get sent to people.
So we just, policy committee wanted to highlight that as being something different than what we've been doing, so just highlighting it to the group.
So for so for instance, this is most relevant during committee minutes. And so when whoever it is, John or who is it, Tia, when they send those minutes, or who's it, Amy, right? Whenever anybody sends those, they can send them to the committee because that is not a quorum. This committee can read them. They just need to send any changes back individually to those minute takers, and then they'll make the changes, track changes. So they'll be the ones to turn on and off track changes anyway, because we're not going to be messing with the documents. So we can all just be viewers and not editors of those documents. That's probably easy too. It's not us from accidentally editing them.
So it just also, that might be something in one of our retreats that we just make sure that those that are taking minutes understand what you're saying.
We'll reiterate that because it's different from our current policy. Okay. Any other comments on FA, FAA, or BEDG? What was the motion again to move them to
the second reading?
Any additional? John, do you have anything else to add to this discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor of moving them on to second reading? Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Brings us back to, where are we? To 10, what was formerly 10F. Discussion.
It's 10A.
Oh.
We're not actually doing tonight.
She did that already.
Okay, that was just, that was one and the same.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. 10F, discussion and action, approve the donation of $3,000 from the Byrne Foundation for LHS Student Month. Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve a donation of $3,000 from the Byrne Foundation for our LHS Student Month.
Can I get a second? Richard? Okay, motion by MJ, second by Richard.
Sure, I just want again, the Byrne Foundation, the request came from the high school for $1,000 to maintain the program to 2026. The Byrne Foundation gave us $3,000, so we'll have this program funded for 6 years. Again, thank you.
Great. All right, so all those in favor of approving the donation? Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard? Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And John?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, and again, I want to just repeat what Amy said, and as always, we really, really appreciate the continued generosity of the Byrne Foundation, and they have always been very good to Lebanon School District, and we are very much in their debt for this and many other donations as well. All right, committee updates. Finance and Facilities met Thursday, May 9th.
We did.
We shared them?
You did?
Yep.
Yeah, I have not seen them. So, maybe you can assist me with the, we discussed the capital improvement plan a lot.
We talked a little bit about the food service in policy BCF. Talked about creating a dashboard for our capital improvement plan. So Tim and John Kerber are going to come up with a kind of a draft for us. John talked about a program that they're using for work orders called Incident IQ. We talked about looking at the city CIP, how to kind of coordinate that, talking about maintenance progress, wanting to bring this up around strategic planning and
board goals. And then we talked about principal budget sheets and how we would bring that back to SALT. And I think that's it. Okay. And
we do actually have a next meeting, which, no, I think, didn't we say like, sorry, I'm trying to find it now. You else recall what we actually settled on?
Wrong year, I'm in 2020. It looks like June 17th, maybe, or 4:30.
Oh, yep. Yes, June 17th, 4:30 to 6 p.m.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, policy committee met Monday, May 13th and Monday, May 20th.
We are having lots of fun in policy committee.
Excellent. You've seen all the results of this.
And just to note, because MJ asked the question, there was a policy on New Hampshire School Board Association just sent out their updated list, and some of the policies that we've been trying to crank through happen to be on that list, happen to have some substantial changes, so we had to pull AC back. So anyway, so we've got that list now to work with. We spent lots of time with the meal account policy. That will hopefully be coming. I think that and DAF will be coming for the board for first reading this time.
Okay. We have a 4-hour meeting scheduled on the 17th.
The
4-hour meeting.
Doing lunch.
All right.
Starting at 8:30, and we're doing
Great.
lunch.
Good job. I appreciate the work. All right, education committee. Next meeting is September 9th at 4:15 p.m. Meeting May 29th from 5 to 6 p.m. And then the non-meeting is for the entire board with legal at 6 to 7 p.m.
So I have a question on that. So we had the Zoom link for the legal meeting, but is it the 5 to 6, is that in person or another Zoom?
I think it's a Google Meet.
Okay, because we did not actually get the invite for the 5 to 6. Okay. Or the committee members did not.
Yeah, it's on the Google Meet.
It's on the calendar invite. So it says join the Google Meet.
For
the 5 to 6?
I only got one for 6 and 7.
You've accepted the 5 to 6.
It's in your calendar.
It should be, in the calendar. Because if there's not, then there's something going on because you're not receiving my stuff. But it looks like
I do not even know I have the Google Calendar. So.
My Google Calendar, my SAU calendar.
My stuff did pop up and it was delayed.
Okay. MJ, if you need me to. Okay, I'll resend it out.
So you're going to do it through Google Meets
And then
versus
the small PNN group will do Google Meet. We're going to elect our chair of PNN from 5 to 6 and get our mission. And then from 6 to 7 Zoom with Mr. Shaughnessy.
Okay.
Perfect. Great. Student Wellness Advisory Committee, their next meeting is in the fall of 2024. HACTC met Tuesday, May 21st.
It was delightful. We went to the school and they served us a delicious lunch. And then 2 lovely Lebanon students gave presentations to us about what they've been up to and the value of their education there. And it was very impressive, delightful, frankly.
Great. Excellent. Area met Tuesday, May 14th. We met the new superintendent at Grantham, and we talked about updates on hiring, renovation of facilities, and class sizes. We had lots of questions. Both groups from Plainfield and from Grantham had some questions for us about the early childhood room, about
The incident.
yes, about the shooter, the mental health incident at the lockdown at the other schools. Talking about coordinating with districts because some of that obviously affects our district partners as well. And then we also talked about maybe attending some regional trainings for all of us, so that we're all kind of making sure that we're on the same page as far as our emergency protocols go. So it was a very nice meeting. Oh, and the principal of
the new acting superintendent, so that was great as well.
Any conversation happening from Plainfield about their exploration of middle school
Yes.
stuff?
So they did talk about that. So they are exploring having a Cornish and Plainfield middle school because right now Cornish and Plainfield are both K through 8. So they're exploring, and it's going to be a 1-year exploration project about doing that over the next year. It was approved by their towns. In addition, they are exploring becoming a cooperative district potentially, and that's going to be a 2-year study as well. So a 1-year study happening simultaneously. A 1-year study talking about having a middle school for their those 2 towns, and then a 2-year study talking about becoming a cooperative.
And did you understand what a cooperative is? Like, what is how does that change them?
I don't know if they do know yet how it would change them, so that's why
That's what they're studying.
that's what they're studying, right? It doesn't benefit them or not.
Yeah. There was some legislation for incentivizing districts to become cooperative districts, but I think there was a.
What does that mean? What does that term mean?
They're joining.
Oh, so just like joining.
Yeah, so they'd have kind of a joint school board.
Yeah.
And I think there was a question about, like, at one point, there had to be an amount of number of students to get that tuition, $200 bump per student, so we didn't find out that answer if they would qualify.
So that was the area. And the next meeting for them is, we did set a meeting.
We did, we set our 3 meeting times.
One is in
October, yeah, October, February, and May.
The school district city task force, their next meeting Thursday? Tomorrow, right, sorry, I have to figure out what day it is. Next meeting is on Thursday. And future agenda items, board member recommendations or questions. One question, and Jessica brought this up, which is a good one. When we had talked back about having 2 separate meetings for strategy, we had gone back and forth about dates, and there were no dates that the whole entire board could come, but we did agree that we thought having the 2 separate meetings for strategy would be important. The strategic planning would be important. What we had scheduled was we had scheduled meetings through the 26th of June. However, that means that we have a strategic planning meeting at the same time that we are having board retreat, and that is probably not a good idea. So when I sent out the original, we were sort of deciding, and some people could come on the 26th, some people could come on July 10th was one of our options. So my recommendation, but you all can decide what you want to do. My recommendation is that we add the July 10th meeting, if that works for people. It doesn't have to work for everyone, but if it works for a majority. And Jessica, who will be running those strategic planning meetings, is going to be sending us, I think this is my understanding, what we said before, going to be sending us pre-work to do before we get to the meetings. Do you want to explain?
I think maybe we can chat about that, and I can send some stuff out if we.
Okay. Yeah. So so that we come to those meetings having had some thought already, and we're ready to proceed. Yes, do you have a question?
Yeah. So, the way that the calendar goes, then are we saying that the June 12th meeting, I think we had said as strategy 1, the June 26th is strategy 2, and retreat. So how are we going to try to do the strategy? Which are we doing retreat, and which ones are we doing?
That's what we're trying to decide. Right. I mean, that's what I'd like to figure out right now. So what do we don't want to. I think if we combine the retreat and the strategic planning meeting, then that's going to be sort of, I don't know how useful that is. I think they need to be separate. And so if we have them be separate, then we'll have 3 additional meetings as opposed to 2. So
Can I ask another question? So if we did the strategy one, if we did the retreat on 12, strategy on 26, is there anything saying that we can't have distance between the 1 and 2? Like, so if we said we had one in the end of June and then had our first meeting in August, be the second part of that, giving us July off, is there?
It's a good question. I don't know. What do you think about the proximity and time of the 2 meetings?
I could think about it. Hard to say.
Okay. I mean, I think we could do that. So if we were going to have space in between, which I mean, we don't know if that will work. If we were going to have space in between, I would say that then we would need to have a meeting early. What was that?
The retreat on the 10th of July,
Well,
the other Tuesday, the way they are.
So that's one possibility, is we have it June 12th, strategic planning meeting 1, or board retreat, and then June 26th, strategic planning meeting 1, and July 10th, strategic planning meeting 2. That's one option. Second option that Wendy is suggesting is we have June 12th, board retreat, June 26th, strategic planning meeting 1, and then we have a gap of July, and we have a meeting in early August for strategic planning meeting 2. So we have July off. That's another proposal. What are our thoughts?
Are people doing any and all of the above, or will I want to be here for whatever we're doing on 26th?
Right, some people are not going to be able to all of them. So, and maybe you can't answer this, Jessica, but what is the estimated length of a strategy meeting? What is the ideal length? 2 hours, 3 hours? I don't know. I mean, what are you thinking of for a time commitment?
It all depends on what the board is hoping to achieve, I think, and how, I think the original proposal was for at least 2 meetings of 3 hours each. I think truthfully that's pretty skimpy, but I think that's sort of what people felt they could accommodate, so.
For those who weren't here when that was decided, what is the strategic meeting actually for?
John, do you have a question?
No, I was going to just add, I'm totally indifferent.
Say that again?
Will of the majority.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm totally indifferent.
I got it, thank you. I couldn't hear it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Just for those of us who weren't here when it was decided to have a strategic planning meeting schedule, what are they for?
To consider board strategy and district strategy.
Okay, ask a stupid question.
So I think we had many discussions about that we have various committees that are tasked with doing various things.
Yeah.
But it is difficult in these meetings to have overarching, broader steering kinds of discussions, right? And so we wanted to have specific, and we are anticipating that we will be revising our district strategic plan this coming year. So this is sort of a stepping off point of that in some ways, to get ourselves more strategically thinking, and then the process can proceed as well.
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
I totally follow that.
Okay, great.
We're going to propose the
Oh.
26th and then the 10th, just to keep the conversation going, so we don't have to like rehash where we were.
Okay.
So is it, the other question or wonder would be did we break it up into 2 just because we were trying to fit it into a weeknight? So if we did a Saturday work session, could we accomplish what we need to if we gave ourselves a day?
I would say that in my experience, people don't tend to have a lot of capacity to think strategically beyond 3 hours. So you generally can't accomplish more in 6 hours consecutively than you can't accomplish as much as you. So that's my experience, but that's a good word.
That makes sense. That would be I think that's true for all of us with heavy subjects, right? After a certain amount of time, like these meetings, we are no longer
that productive. So I think breaking it up into two, I think still makes sense.
I'm comfortable with doing the retreat on the 12th, the first strategy meeting on the 26th, and the second strategy meeting on the 10th of July.
So yes, Kevin says yes.
I'm going to say I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to give myself July off. So
No,
I may
maybe
do that.
That's okay. People will, not everyone is going to be at every single one of the meetings. We know this because of preconditions and all kinds of things, which is fine.
And if we have to come back and guess that July seems like a month.
Right. Any other comments? Okay, so it looks like the consensus, majority, I guess, is saying retreat on the 12th, strategic planning meeting on the 26th, strategic planning meeting number 1, and strategic planning meeting number 2 on July 10th. Yes? Yes, okay, great. Are there any other board member recommendations or questions? Okay. Important dates and district announcements. The early childhood care room presentation will be to the community will be Tuesday, May 28th at 6 p.m. at the LHS library, and there will be a Zoom link for that. The next school board meeting, which will be our retreat, as we just decided, is Wednesday, June 12th at 6:30 p.m. Then the strategic planning meeting, which we just decided, will be on June 26th, the first of those.
So June 12th will be here or at Lebanon High School? It says LHS, that's why I want to clarify.
Yeah, I don't know why it's
I think that's down in Era.
That's
okay.
Library. Yeah, I think it might be in the library actually, but it'll be here.
Is that with the attorney or? Okay, we just know.
Okay.
Or school board is
No, we can decide what we want to do. And any other business? Can I get a motion to adjourn? Non-public. Oh, non-public, I'm sorry. We're going to have read non-public. We have to discuss the matter we brought up in our last non-public. Under, what's the last one? Under
J.
J.
Okay, I'm making a motion to go into non-public under NHRSA 91A32J.
Okay. All right. And I will bring you back the information. So there's a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Tia. We're going to take a roll call to enter non-public. Tia?
Yes.
And Wendy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. MJ?
Yes.
Richard?
Yeah.
Mary?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay. And
So
we
are you
will,
going to have to take them up on your phone?
yeah, I'm going to have to, John, I'm going to have to pick you up on my phone in non-public in a couple minutes. Okay?
No worries.
Okay. Thank you.
second. And then we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion to adjourn. Adjourn.
John, sorry, he left.
Okay. Second by